Previously on Twin Portals, we finished one campaign. It took us 3 years, but we got there, so we had a little party to celebrate. This is kind of what I expected. We were going to originally do kind of like a talkback episode, just because we had a month to fill and I wanted to not jump right back into another campaign. So I thought, why not do, and it wasn't even going to be a talkback, I'll be honest with you. It's going to be us sitting around drinking and eating and then just kind of having a good time, because I'm like, no, get the food off the table, get the crinkly things off the table. I don't want to hear beers or anything cracking open. I'm just kind of a dick about all that stuff on the normal recording, like the story episodes. And so I wanted to say, for one, let's just fucking Justin Peck.
I was doing some cookie ASMR while you started.
There's a reason why I'm across the table from him at all times, because his comedic shit is so good. And also I can look at him and say, no. So I just wanted to kind of have a chill time where we could talk about the podcast, talk about the story, talk about D&D, other nerdy shit, whatever we feel like talking about, whatever we dive into. I have no script for this. I was going to make one yesterday, but full disclosure, I broke my foot yesterday. So that's why the hundreds of people in this room have seen me limping around with an air cast on, because I'm just trying to get through it. Once I load up and load out at home, then I'll be off my feet for a while. So, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to chill out, and we ended up getting this space instead of the upstairs space. And so Dennis Johnson was very nice, and I said, could we invite a few people in and just sort of have like a secret show get together sort of a thing for a few of our good friends and family. And thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. We know it looks kind of odd with just the 6 people in the house. Truly, this makes us feel really good. We enjoy doing this, and we have this set up in a pretentious Comic-Con like panel.
We're calling it Twin Portal Con 2021.
Truly, we were discussing. We're like, should we move this back and have you guys sit on the stage with us? And I'm like, that seems weirder. Let's not do that. I don't know how that would play. I've been on stage as an audience member, and it's weird, so I didn't want to do that. So we just kind of wanted. This is like, it can be an open discussion. I mean, if you guys got stuff, there's another mic that's facing towards you guys, and if we need you to repeat something, I'll ask you, because I'm using the only monitoring headphones. Otherwise, it's just going to be us just chit-chatting.
Oh, so you're actually recording all of this audience feedback?
Yeah. Whether or not I use it?
On its own track.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's on a completely separate thing. Except for the fact that I have all of these mics up super high, because Matthias likes to talk way the hell back here, and so...
to gesticulate with my volumes.
God, you're terrible. Just a monster.
Hands and my torso.
Just a monster. I can gesticulate with my volume without moving my head.
We don't have boom stands like we used to, Scott, so now I gotta like hold my mic like this if I want to do stuff.
It's only because of this much gear that Scott is not equipped with squirt bottles.
We're using the smaller stands instead of the giant stands, because I've got a weightlifting restriction right now. Thank you, Matthias. Now I feel bad. You talk, you do your thing.
Okay, well, I was gonna say, I feel like we got these bigger boom stands and mics, 12 episodes ago, 13 episodes ago?
Yeah.
Thanks to Scott's grant applications. And
thank you, State of Minnesota. Thank you, Minnesota voters. Appreciate it.
Salute you. Clean Water Act. Anyway, we started out pretty rough as far as like tracking the mic. And I think just in the last couple episodes, we did pretty good. Like there were still some slips from time to time, but like it's definitely been a process, and we're all pretty okay at it now. Note how I'm tilting my head around the mic as I look at you all instead of just like leaning in away from you guys I'm talking about.
This whole section's for John Brophy and no one else.
Yeah. Anyway, I got some questions here about D&D stuff and about our campaign.
For everybody?
For y'all who played Twin Portals with us. Just to start out. Well, yeah. I'm just going to presume that whoever's listening here, y'all have listened to some episodes of the show. You kind of know the story of it. So we're going to get into it. First of all, Justin, you asked earlier, what were there any loose story threads or side quests that we wanted to talk through or have a unpacking of because we just didn't get to them? Any dangling bits that you're curious about?
Yeah. You're laughing about the question, or that he said dangling bits?
Yeah. That we're curious about.
Or things that we forgot about. There was a lot. I made a wiki around episode 10 and then didn't update it because there was so much to add to it.
And we got Robert. Robert's our living wiki now.
Yeah.
Have you looked at our wiki, Robert?
I don't know what a wiki is. Is it like a Wookiee?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
just saying nerdy shit now.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
You got it.
That was it exactly.
But it's full of information, so really, if you blended Chewie and C-3PO into one horrible being, that could answer your questions, but only in Wookiee.
I think I'm following that.
Yeah.
For all we know, Chewie could be just as knowledgeable as C-3PO. We just don't understand what he's saying half the time.
I just don't think it's possible. He's got an organic brain.
Which half of the time do you
But he's like
understand?
300 years old. Yeah. Exactly.
C-3PO knows how many languages? Chewie just speaks the one. So.
Yeah.
Knows them, quote unquote. I haven't heard him speak 3,000 languages. I'm just saying. What if like the internet goes out? You know. Anyway.
Wait, does he run on the internet? I don't understand Star
Yeah.
Wars.
That was before. It was long, long ago.
Right.
C-3PO is just
You're right.
just a mechanism for Google Translate. That's what you're saying?
So we're riffing right now.
Questions, yes.
Thing.
Dangling bits. You had a question
Dangling
about
bits.
Dangling bits.
You want to hear
Yes.
about dangling bits?
Yes. You asked just a question, Justin. So
Yeah,
let
well, I
me
was
come to
curious
your
if
mind.
anybody else, if there were things that like threads that got
Yeah.
abandoned. Like you had a whole list of side
I
quests.
do. Yeah,
It's
I was going through
stunning.
my quests. Yeah, these are my quests. I do.
And-
Some of them have turned gray.
Oh, very much so. It's
Yeah.
it's great. Before we start each episode, when we're recording up in the rehearsal space, she pulls out this Rolodex of different quests that she has taken notes on. It's like, oh, this person in this episode, we had this thing that we could have done. So do we want to explore that? Or 4 episodes ago, we have this and this. And this. It's fantastic. My brain just goes like, you tell me what we're doing. I'm just going to try to make it sound good.
It did help me with prioritizing. Like you asked about Ramalia Haven Tree probably like 20 times before she finally became
I
relevant.
was like, so are we still? Do we need to go to the yawning portal?
Yeah.
But you did a really nice job of just being like, they're closed today. I'm like, okay, not that, not this episode. Okay, they're under construction. Guess we're not going to the yawning portal. Okay, Amalia's for later.
we got permanently banned from the yawning portal for a while.
We
Maybe that
did.
was the reason why.
Yeah, so we couldn't follow through on
Tired of
that.
you asking about Ramalia.
There's some I think we still might find the answers to.
Yes.
Like Jinx knows knew my full name before I did. What? Are we gonna find out more?
I'm assuming that's because you just said it on accident. Is that not true?
Not anymore.
I have figured that might have been it too, which I was like, how did he know my name?
Well, I wasn't honestly. Full disclosure, I wasn't sure if you had said your full name before ever in the campaign, so I just went for it.
Yeah.
And then you got really wide-eyed, and then I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, now we gotta justify this. Here we go, and it'll be something interesting, whatever it ends up
Oh,
being."
I'm sure it will.
Did you, Kendra, know the full name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who else has secrets?
David.
I think
It's like I feel like my character just sort of came, which is great because it's so opposite of what a barbarian and a half orc normally are. It's just like had the normal job, had the normal family life, just always sort of that structure. Truly like open books, like, oh, and I'm probably too dumb to have too many secrets anyways. I guess I don't really know where I got that tattoo.
What's Scoot's intelligence score again? Is it 8?
It's down there. It's somewhere. Yeah, like 9.
Okay.
9.
But his wisdom's pretty good, so he's not dumb. He's just doesn't
12.
have a lot of book knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Just
I
sharp,
don't
dude.
I don't know. Just not interesting. Just wants to get through the day.
Yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah.
Not out for adventure too often, it seems like. I don't know.
that's why Scoot and Lark work so well together, because you have high intelligence, or no, high wisdom, low intelligence, and Lark is high intelligence, low wisdom.
I think I'm your rock.
Yeah.
It's like I'm your safe place.
You're the wind beneath my wings,
Yeah.
Scott.
I'm half tempted to
here
put the
for
song
all of
in,
this.
but I know I'm going to get copyright strikes.
That's
You like
a
the
good
high
point.
charisma side of the
Just a
table over
cover.
here, and then
Yeah.
like, the high wisdom.
And everyone's got a
side.
higher dexterity than me.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I know. Sorry, I derailed that hard.
It's all right. Yeah. So is anything popping into your minds? Otherwise, I'm just going to keep my secrets. I mean, this is your opportunity.
what
Grandpa
are your side quests?
Growlhund,
Yeah.
and like the backstory there, and why on earth the necromancer would do us such a favor just
Yeah.
because he knew my grandpa. I don't buy that story. So Ilka is very curious about what actually went down between the necromancer and Grandpa Mordecai or whatever we called him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's one that I can't go into. I'm afraid.
Sweet.
Good talk.
But we'll get there. I do feel like the priorities moving forward, they're hinting a little darker than in the first arc, which was all about finding treasure. And I think the amount of spooky stuff, dead people, amnesiac histories, deals with the devil that we're all juggling, this is going to darker places probably than a pile of gold, which was our first 29 episodes.
Thank you for just writing the next 29 episodes. I saw him sketching it right there.
He was taking notes as you were talking.
I'm looking for new themes to explore with the next like arc that we record, because I feel like this one was very like pretty lighthearted and very location based and had a lot of just kind of general like familial themes and just like how do you deal with family that you trust or don't trust or are connected with or not connected with, and what is family. And that was kind of like almost every character played into that somehow.
It was a lot of comfort food.
Yeah.
It was very meat and potatoes.
Yeah, and like that kind of theme is very, like everyone deals with that, so it's pretty universal.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for more themes to explore for the next part, like something different. We still have that element, which is very core to our characters, but like so something. I just wrote maybe something darker and underlined it 3 times. So that was
Great.
Here to help.
yeah. Anyway, anybody else? No, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I mean, along that line, since we're talking necromancer, at the point where the necromancer clones Lark, had you already planned that he was going to? Well, like maybe this cuts too close to what you have in the bag too. But did you already have plans that he was going to be spying through Lark's eyes, like we found out in the last episode? Like that was all you had already. That was the intention there.
Yes. I mean, I don't want to get too far into it, but there was a lot going on with that necromancer guy that we have not explored.
Why did he let us take the mask?
I definitely can't tell you.
The worst podcast ever.
Sorry. Thank you, listeners.
Here,
Twin Portal.
Here,
to
I
find
stopped recording.
answers,
You can
though.
tell us now.
Okay, so
I
the
just need
deal
to keep
is
adding these to the list now. Why did Necromancer give us masks?
the best part is that none of that is in that book, so you can read it all you want, and you will not know.
Okay, then I have another one.
Okay.
At the beginning, like very early on, I forget if it was episode 1 or episode 2.
Yep.
Grim Wavesilver, who I made up, right? That's not the actual Lord. If I can't remember. I think I made that up. Okay.
Yes,
So
you did.
Grim Wavesilver is really a dick, and like when I on like family credit bought the Beholder die at Lafoomp's, he sent the messenger and he was charging like 500% interest compounded every 10 day or some insane thing.
Yep.
That's very different than the Grim Wavesilver that we met later on. At what point in your mind did that change?
Well, I wanted to get into that again, and I was looking for an opportunity to loop in Lark's family again because it's such a core part of his background, and it wasn't like they kind of had like this whole like castle enter element with their business, and then just like their whole standoffishness with Lark. And so when Lark died, that's kind of when I figured that, like, okay, so how would this impact his parents, and how would this change their perspective on how they deal with him? And that was kind of the first time you saw them was like at the end of the campaign there. And so that's where I was like, okay, these people there's no more time for like lessons, And I don't know how well justified it feels listening to it, but that was kind of my main turning point for those two.
That was a rough episode too. That live show when you died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was everybody here for that one? Just the. Yeah.
Oh no!
He's here as just like an in memoriam. I was going to put it up on that, but I'm assuming it's used in the show that's going on here now.
Who invited David?
But yeah, we never addressed the compounding interest element of that whole interaction. I forgot about that. Thank you.
We paid it off
Reminding me.
fairly quickly.
Oh, we did. We did.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep, we did. We got a bunch of money, and then we had to use it all to pay off. I think Scoot paid it off.
That's right. I haven't listened back to the episodes 5 through 10. in a
Was
while.
that when I won all that money rolling
Yes.
dice?
Yep.
And you gave it to them before
That was
everybody left.
that was messed up.
That was awesome.
That was legit too. That wasn't fudging anything. That was true emotion on stage when I rolled a 30% chance twice in a row.
Yep.
Followed by us unable to grab a rope. Right? Because of how the die rolled.
I'm sorry.
We kept it very authentic.
Used all the luck.
I used all the juice up on that. It's like
And then we all threw ourselves out the window.
make a small amount of money. Cool. Save a life.
Yeah.
I'll use the dice for what I want.
You asked about Isvel too, about Lark's mom.
Yeah.
And what happened with her. And that was more of a tricky thing because, first of all, when you were giving me your backstory and you named her Isvel, that made me do a double take because the character in the written adventure, the Black Viper, is named Isvel. And so that was like, wow, what a coincidence. There's this character who's written in as this vigilante rogue who is trying to get away from her family oppressive background and do right on the streets of Waterdeep. And that's what you named your mom.
I should be writing for Wizards of Coast.
Yeah. But in episode, was it 4 when she showed up?
Something like that. When we were when we were in the sewer
Yeah.
the first
Three
time.
episode arc where we were in the sewers.
I wasn't planning on her being your mom quite yet, but I did accidentally say Isvel in that episode, and it's on the recording at one point when I'm alluding to her. That was one of my big bad slip-ups that made me stay awake, lie awake at night and think oh no. Now they know.
and I truly can't remember 2 episodes ago.
And so that got me thinking, well, how can I justify this when they ask me about it? Because they will. Oh, no. Okay, so if that's a spell, then that has to be Lark's mom. But then I wasn't, totally set on it until kind of that Castlanter episode where you got to know them a little better. And then I was like, okay, no, this actually is kind of a fun dynamic because then, I can kind of try to give them more than, a one-note, personality and give them some arc, too. And so then I started making plans.
That's so awesome.
Other questions?
Well, there's Mr. Ziyagi,
Yeah.
I gotta find him.
who I made up as a joke. That's a funny backstory.
Yeah, but this is D&D.
But now we've committed to it.
We gotta justify everything.
He's on my quest list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, then I feel comfortable. Then I will not remember. I don't have to remember.
Ziyagi's probably an Elvish name with a lot of apostrophes that stands for Zyalith, Gianor, I don't know.
Is it spelled with a Z or an X?
Both.
Wait.
For the record, the amount of similar names in this kills me. I'm dying all the time trying to keep them straight in my head.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
I can't even keep them straight on my paper.
Isvel and Osvaldo.
Osvaldo?
The
Yep.
kid
Yep.
who's turned into
Dad.
a demon beast. No.
Terenzio and Elzarina. Oh, Osvaldo is the son. Yep.
It was
Yeah,
the son with the
Big
blades that I
Forest.
wanted to
Yep.
take one of.
The
Yep.
Z's.
All the Z's, Jesus.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Zentrans,
and that's as written.
Xanathar,
That wasn't even me. That was Chris Perkins.
Romalia, Amalia.
Chris.
Chris, get here and
Yeah,
answer for
Romalia,
yourself.
Amalia.
Well, and then I was
wish.
effing around with a
Chris
name
Perkins senpai.
to get Ilka, and it turns out in the book her mom is Yala.
Whose mom?
Ilka's mom.
Well,
No,
Ilka's
yeah.
aunt? There's another.
Yagra.
No, there's
Yala
Yagra.
Gralhund
Yala.
is the Gralhund matron that you guys
Oh,
dealt
yeah.
with in the
Yala
Gralhund.
Yagra.
Right.
I
But
mixed
we've
it
got
up.
all these Y names that just happened.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. Ilka, Yagra, Yala.
Yep.
And you picked Gralhund as a last name, not
Right.
knowing that it
Yep.
was actually one of the major,
Right.
out of a list of 100 Waterdeep nobility last names. That
Well,
you found
I
on the internet.
needed some kind of that they were on the evil side because they were effing around with demonic stuff, and that's why Grandpa intervened and killed her and sent her to the other world
Yep.
to save her. It's complicated, but either way, I needed some of that. They had to be a slightly nefarious household.
Yeah, and that tied into the campaign as written in ways that you had no idea, which is fantastic. Mr. Ziyagi was not part of the campaign as written.
Is now.
I didn't
But-
guess that one right.
And then we just fill in the teeth of it. Zuber,
Oh yeah.
all the thing. What else?
Well, those we made up. Like
I
that
know.
was
Yeah,
just
I
that
do
was
like
us
the
riffing
Zilker.
on how
I
ridiculous
know,
all the Z's were.
and that's just us digging a
Zyquil,
deeper
that's very
hole.
smart.
So what were the other ones? that we-
Zyquil, Zuber, Zilka.
Zilka, yep.
There were like many, like
Yeah,
Zani
anything that was,
Cash.
like,
I think like
slightly
Zenard Cohen was one.
Any reference gets a Z or an X in front of it,
As
And
though
it's-
that will save us.
and it's can't.
Oh, and then
yeah.
there was Zift too, the competitors to Zuber. Yeah.
It's just a coping mechanism.
I'm delighted how much Rowan Crooks, a thing that I just because when I was kind of coming up with Lark's backstory, I was trying to think of the way to make him as nerdy as possible, and so that he was excited about these pulp comic books about the Rat Man and these fantasy novels about Rowan Crooks and his Jolly Gents. I just it's just a thing that I made up for fun that it became such a critical part of the whole story. I thought that was delightful.
It was a fun thing.
Well, and you two riffed off each other about it so much, Matthias and Lark, that I was like, wow, this must be canon. Like, this must come from something that I have. No, just you two knowing it well enough. That was great.
Yeah, well, I had to, I started kind of like planning out like Rowan Crooks's like actual achievements just to like give him some context in the world, and that's where he got tied in. Then it's like, well, okay, now if they're gonna go to the Feywild, like who would they meet there? Maybe the hag that they met before, maybe Rowan Crooks, and yeah.
There's a list, really like 100-year-old newspaper article. There's some bar here in Duluth where there was, I don't know if it was an arrest or some fight or anyway, the newspaper article lists the like slightly shady people who were arrested as a part of it, and it's some of the best nicknames ever. And that's where I get a lot of the Rowan Crooks people from. Like Antediluvian Jake is one of the guys that got arrested.
No way.
Yeah,
Awesome.
it's so great. Yeah. Yep.
Antediluvian Jake was a real person.
Yes. It's not a very
Minnesota.
handy nickname.
Oh my god.
Hand
That's
the
one that I
notebook-
wrote off and didn't call up again, but yeah.
Did you
He's in
put
the
that
game.
article on the Discord?
I should.
'Cause I haven't seen it.
That's where we put things we don't want you to see.
I'm gonna figure it out.
I know you're
It's pretty easy.
you're very talented.
Well, okay, so I've got a mix of questions here about the Twin Portals show and then just about y'all and like your
Let's do
context
y'all.
of
We've done a lot of
role-playing games.
just in the show like deep cut stuff.
All right.
So let's do
All
some
right.
of this stuff.
So Scott, you brought up on Discord.
I did not.
What?
Never.
I guess we've already kind of talked about this, and you talked to Justin too in that one episode. But so for Kendra and Beth and Robert, like what got you into D&D, or what was like your background prior to Twin Portals? What brought you into the hobby?
I was an Exalted player.
Yeah.
My partner and I built a campaign around the Brineborn, which was kind of zombies, but they'd been soaked in salt to try to trigger a mutation. It was dark and terrible. We had a lot of fun with it, and my best friend's little brother showed up, and there was this whole scene of him ripping a tree out of the ground and just yeeting it at this flock of mermaids. But as we were playing that, Exalted is way more about stunting and improving and making it look and sound cool, and way less about the rules need to be specific. And so D&D is a hard shift on that for me, and sometimes I'm like, right, there are rules. I can't actually do that. So it's neat to shift my brain into a very different play model than just I've invented this magic and now it works. Like, no, it doesn't, and we'll make sure it doesn't. So.
It also gives you like a motivation to stunt a lot more in D&D, I feel like, which
Yes.
you like
Yes.
do with a passion, which is
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that I can where I can make some pun on a song title from the 70s, I will eat that up. Yeah.
Do you have a list, like a summarized list of song titles and things from Twin Portals, or is it just in your notebook, like
It's-
page by page?
It is not organized anywhere.
Yeah,
There are
okay.
just gems.
Give us a
somebody will
couple.
say again.
Give us a couple of your gems. What are some of your
Oh man,
tracks?
yeah. Somebody will say
for your album?
something, and I will just write it down like that's hysterical, and I should write a song about it.
Do you have a rough idea of how many tracks, if you went in there, just like a guess?
30?
30?
The dolphin told me to do that. Shiny
about?
things, a halfling's romance.
That's a short story.
Crows roosting up in here.
Does that say Justin Rap Bitches?
Where do you see it?
I don't know, right there. Or Butchers? Anyway.
It does now. Justin Rap bitches. That's the other side. You know, sometimes I scribble this so fast, you're on your own. What
You
the
did
hell it
wrap
says.
that one episode.
Yeah, this.
Oh yeah, I did. I
Justin's
McDonald's rap.
raspberries, butchers.
Oh, that's right. The McDonald's, the Big Mac wrap, wasn't it?
That's the McDonald's menu wrap.
Oh,
it
the
again.
menu wrap. That's right.
Do it now.
Big Mac McTLT, a quarter pounder with some cheese. I'm not gonna do the whole thing. I could actually though.
Do it.
because- No.
All right, don't do it.
We have
Copyright
it recorded.
strike.
Yeah.
Hey, we didn't get one the first time I posted it
That's right.
because McDonald's never listens to this.
That's a trademark strike, not a copyright strike. Copyright is owned by whoever made the Big Mac rap, but that was just a viral video. So
This is why we
Actually-
ask for audience
it's much older
interaction.
than
Right
that.
Actually,
there.
it's way before then. It was
right.
a flimsy record that you got on the back of a cereal box, and you could play. You could put it on a record player, and it didn't. It kind of wobbled as it spun, so it was kind of like whirr,
They were made of
whirr.
like paper and
It was like
plastic.
$1 million giveaway.
Yeah, if
because
so-
you
if
could
you
get
could
them
memor-
in the Sunday News Tribune as well. I remember because I went to the corner store and got a second one because
God.
I was sure the second paper was going to have the $1 million.
And you could
Everybody
get them
was
off
trying to
pizza
memorize
boxes.
it. Yep, because then you could win money, like $1 million.
Yeah, it
the more you know.
Yeah,
was a terrible rap.
it was
Also a
awful.
thing from the 80s.
When was this, Justin?
Would have been mid '80s, '85-ish, 1985-ish.
I tried to be a millionaire. It didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work out for me.
No.
Nobody ever cared that I could do the McDonald's rap. And then I wish.
We cared.
Well, I feel
Intensely.
like you're
It
being
came
nice.
around.
You're being, you're just being kind. Yeah, I could have used that headspace for other more useful things, but instead, for 40 years, it's been lodged in my brain.
I gave it a prominent post-credit spot
Yeah.
on one episode.
terrible.
I don't know what other honors you want.
None. That's it.
$1 million.
I don't have $1
We've,
million.
we've all done a lot of other things that didn't bring that much joy to even like one or two people. So like really,
Oh, great. Well, you're all welcome.
Damn it.
Robert and Kendra, we got to Beth.
Yeah, how'd you get into D&D?
This is it.
This is it. Done.
I
Kendra.
played that thing with Corey on his last.
Sure.
Yes, Corey Anderson kind of inspired this whole thing.
Right, and
Which
I
the
had
game
never
system was again? Remind
it
me.
was like a.
Oh,
Monster of the Week.
No, this
Yeah.
was we were superheroes. We did two.
We did two of the. Yeah, I can't remember what the first act
hour-long-
was.
It was the superheroes,
Yeah.
and I just played as Barney,
The dinosaur?
but he was an actual dinosaur.
So for a little context, Corey Anderson's last night at Improv, which was 2018, I'm guessing. We said you can do whatever you want with Improv for the night, and actually for the weekend. So for the first night, it was he got to pick all the games and put the teams together and all that. So I came out and played a game of Next with him. Came out of the booth and did that. We had a whole bunch of people come up and do all sorts of stuff. There was no scoring, anything like that. It was just a big party. Night 2, Saturday night, we had a setup kind of like this. Smaller, obviously, no microphones, obviously, but so we got everybody in Improv to play, no matter what their experience level was with role playing games, and made them play these things. It's just playing a role. You got a few rules. You roll a few dice. Corey's gonna DM the whole thing. Just have a drink and do it. And I got sloshed in the second act.
I think everybody did. We were a sloppy mess.
I brought out a bottle of apple pie, and that was gone by the end of that night. That was rough. RUFF rough.
We've almost gotten there in a couple Twin Portals recordings.
You get more quiet the further away you get from that microphone.
We were almost there in a couple of Twin Portals recordings.
Yeah, maybe that's a secret we can share with listeners is that we had our first couple of episodes, we were having a lot of fun, and then we did our first live episode in which we were all a little bit drunk. And I think Kendra's significant other, Adam, said, you guys should get a little bit drunk all the time.
Pretty much. It's like, we record at like 10 a.m. on a Sunday. He's like, yeah.
There's a lot of people drinking wine at 10 a.m. on a Sunday.
So it's
Mimosas.
a kind of interesting balance. Like where are we just tipsy enough where it's funny and not so drunk that it's chaos. And sometimes we do it wrong.
Just
Best
one of the
way.
balancing acts we've had to learn over the course of 3 years.
Yeah.
So who's the most drunk regularly during the Twin Portals recordings?
During the live shows, it's Scott.
but I need it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends.
Yeah, he's got a lot of.
Have you seen Matisse? How far he goes off of the mic just now? Do you realize how much drinking I have to do to deal with that fucking shit at home? Where he's just like, oh, look, I'll just talk louder when I'm back here. But he doesn't. Sorry, I'm having therapy time right now.
What? His
You
revenge
can
chewing
go
into
ahead
the
and crunch right into that
microphone.
microphone. I don't care. At least we can hear that.
I think we should do more Foley work on the podcast. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Sure, you know a Foley artist?
I'll do Foley.
You can't do mic stuff.
Oh. Okay. Never mind then. You're lost.
Well, I got your chewing. What else do you got?
Yeah,
What about Kendra? How'd you get into?
D&D.
So
Yes, yes.
I always wanted to play D&D in high school, and I even had bought one of the modules, the Dragonlance module, and I was so excited. And it had little like cutouts of like the characters and the NPCs, and I would just take them out and like look at them. But I didn't have any friends that played D&D, so I didn't like know how to get into it. And yeah, so then I would play Hero Quest, which was an amazing board game that goes for like $1 billion on eBay now.
I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, so Hero Quest, that was kind of like my gateway. That and like role-playing video games.
There's a new edition of Hero Quest out now.
Oh,
It's
really?
like affordable. Yep.
Oh,
like as of this year. Anyway.
It's probably
It
better.
got kickstarted, yeah.
So then it wasn't actually till I moved to Duluth, I think, that I joined my first D&D campaign. And then I met my current partner playing Dungeons and Dragons with George
know
Kessler,
that.
the meteorologist. He was our dungeon master.
And skies were sunny.
They were. Like, we always knew what the weather was while we were traveling. It was an important...
Did he have a special detail for that kind of stuff?
Oh, gosh, yes.
Was it crazy?
Yeah, yeah. And
Was you like describing clouds in super detail?
Not so much that, but yeah, but everything from, the landscape. You always knew what your landscape looked like
Wow,
when you were playing
nice.
with George.
I was going to say, I kind of had a similar childhood experience. I went to Walden Books when it was at the mall and got it was a D&D starter pack that had this red folder and all these pull-out things so you could kind of get rough characters. I also still have my copy of Hero Quest from the late 80s, early 90s sitting up on a top shelf somewhere. It's one of those things I just would not get rid of. That and Battle Masters, which is this...
We have Battle Masters.
Yep, it's just this enormous play mat with all these giant minis, which is kind of a funny oxymoron. And you just move them around this huge space. It's just too big for any reasonable table. So you have to put it on the floor. It's awesome.
That sounds amazing.
It's really cool.
Did you just admit to having $1 million board game in your house?
It's like the Hero Quest would probably go for maybe 90. I don't know. I guess I haven't looked on eBay.
I guess
in a while.
Yeah,
Matthias is
when it
writing
was like 10
down
years
Rob
ago.
Scott.
Yeah, and he would ignore the
It's in
microphones and go
school.
for the board games too.
That's true.
I have a question. I have a follow-up question about the Dragonlance module. Was it like a third edition Dragonlance module, or were you actually, because there was a base like Dragonlance system too that came out in the
It might
kinda
have been that.
mid-eighties?
I
Okay.
wouldn't have known enough to tell you
Okay.
the difference. I had that, and then I had hand-me-down Advanced Dungeons and Dragons
Yeah.
books that I also just like looked at and
I wish I had someone
wish
to
I had, yeah, because I did cheerleading and most of my friends were football players. And they should have, in hindsight, talking to them now, they totally would have been interested, and we should have just figured shit out and
Yeah.
done it. But
Do you still have any of that stuff?
I don't. I cling to a lot of things, but I've moved a lot in my life, and that and my Harry Potter books did not make it with me to my current destination. I mostly bring that up for Adam for when he's listening because I recycled them. I didn't even donate them. I was just moving and didn't want to move one more box, and I was like, going in the recycling bin, and he was like, and he still makes fun of me for it.
Me and Scott and Justin already talked about our stuff, so maybe I'll just...
Yeah, listen to our recorded episodes if you're curious about how we started playing.
Yeah.
Dungeons.
Yeah, like 20 and 21 or
The
something.
early pandemic episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the dark time.
That's something to think about. We've been doing this for 3 years now.
Early
We started in 2018, and the first time we did it on stage was 3 years ago in a couple days, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
what's everybody been up to?
Yeah, big life events.
There's been a lot of life events going on. I switched jobs. Giant career shift. That was my huge stressor during that.
Children.
Yeah, kids born.
But,
Mine
yeah.
are mostly sad.
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you on that one.
I have a question for you all on a lighter note.
Oh, I want to see a darker note after that.
Okay. Question is, since we're doing this kind of like Twin Portals Con panel right now, what advice do you all have for folks who want to do actual play podcasts?
Start.
Like this.
Just grab your stuff and start. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I started Twitch streaming in 2015, and it's one of those things where it's just like you just gotta press go live. You have an idea of what you want. It's like you watch for a while. You say, oh, if I had that, and an audience of 1,000 people, I could do this exact same thing. No problem. I'm that funny. But you just got to take what you have and start and just get some practice doing it. I mean, we started with that Blue Yeti that I'm pointing at right now and this laptop, which is at least 15 years old. This is a hand-me-down from my sister.
It runs Windows XP.
It's got Windows XP on it and a copy of Audacity that I'm not willing to update because I just don't know what's going to happen to the computer if I do. And it sounded terrible. If you listen to episode 1, it just sounds like garbage compared to the latest ones because
That's the thing is compared, though.
What's that?
Compared.
Yeah.
Like when you first were like, we need new mics, we need this, I'm going to write a grant. And I was like, great, awesome, write a grant, but we're fine. But now that I listen to the difference, I'm like, oh, Scott was right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, we were in possibly the worst room, which I still love. I'm still very appreciative to the Renegade Theater Company for letting us use their rehearsal space. I mean, I really wanted a neutral space. I wanted nobody's phones, nobody's pets, nobody's kids. I just wanted a space where we could not be distracted by outside things and just focus on this thing for a couple of hours, just coming to a neutral place, and it works great. It's not sound treated at all. I think they're going to make some changes to it in the new year.
Not to that room specifically.
But there's
that room is now an education center, which is awesome for
even
filmmakers.
Better. Oh, sweet.
Yes.
Nice.
Contact Zeitgeist.
Excellent.
Film
Yeah.
filmmakers.
Yeah, love Zeitgeist. Love Mary Fox, who, oh my God, Mary Fox. First time I talked to Mary Fox about this was at the Cinema, or the Zeitgeist Cafe. And I just said, hey, I got an idea for some different sort of storytelling, and talked about recording D&D and talked about Matthias being on board and just trying something. And she just grabbed me. She physically grabbed a hold of me and said, yes, I want to do it. I want to see this. How can we make this happen? And that encouragement was everything, that was spectacular. So there's people out, but you don't need that space. You don't need a stage to do it. You just need your few people and a passion, an idea, just get out there and do it. And it's not always going to be great. Some of it's going to sound bad. Some of it's going to be great, but you're probably going to have a lot of fun. You're definitely going to learn some stuff. So just start doing it. David Greenberg, what up?
So I know that some of you have some improvisational experience, limited as it is. But is there any difference in the way that you approach? That was a joke, guys. Don't look so serious.
I was like, he's talking about me.
We're all professionals. But when it came to coming to doing a live play podcast, how is that difference in the experience you've done with your home games? Do you approach it differently? Do you prep differently? Or do you just kind of fly by the seat of your pants and hopefully make a fun story? Yes.
No change. I mean, there's things you have, depending on which way you want to go, you can leave things in. There are rules discussions. There are outside conversations that happen. That's kind of part of the natural flow of a D&D game, which is what I wanted to have. I wanted it to have a fly on the wall. We're going to play a game. It's going to be kind of funny. It's probably going to be an entertaining experience, So some of the stuff gets left in. Some of the pauses gets left in for dramatic effect, things like that. But it's how much editing work you want to do to take that stuff out. You can kind of give some instructions, try to guide people, but then you're gonna eliminate the natural flow. And if you got a
By
group
people, do you mean listeners?
Or players.
of players, I think. What the hell did I just say? I'm drunk.
Try to guide people.
Yeah, I mean, no, the players. Like try to give instructions about content or delivery of things. If you're gonna try to give somebody line readings, things like that, it's just never gonna work. You're gonna destroy the game that you have. Why would you want to do that? So you just
So all the times I told you, no, Scoot would act this way, Scott. You didn't appreciate that? You didn't want me to do that?
No, you've got no idea what Scoot is all about. Yeah, sorry. So I think what you should do is you should try it, record it, but don't listen while you're recording, and try to not think about that stuff when you're recording. Just record and let the game happen as it happens. And then when you listen later, you can figure out what you think you like listening to, what you think an audience might listen to. I mean, because it kind of comes down, since I'm the one who does all the editing, it's kind of down to my ear and what I think the audience wants to hear. So I kind of make the decisions on this. This is relative to the situation. This is not. We can leave this in. We're going to cut this. But you will figure out for your own self, for your own game, for your own audience, your own players, what the podcast is going to entail, what the game is going to be. So, but you just got to start and then figure it out for yourself. But for other prep, don't do any other prep. Just be yourself. If you think you have something that people are going to want to listen to, put it out there. Bang.
I'm curious what the rest of the group thinks about that, because I feel differently.
Yeah, I think Scott has answered it from the perspective of producing a podcast.
Yes,
probably,
and that's all. I think that's all super valid and important. But as a player, and I think as a DM too, it's quite different for me actually. The way that I play a game, like a home game D&D, and the way that we play this, and we've kind of been talking about this recently, and I almost prefer this. Because we at least I play in a way where I am always thinking of what plays well for a listener. If we were playing just for ourselves, we would maybe spend a little bit more time looking for traps or debating mechanics or like things that just happen naturally in a game of D&D, but would be
we don't do any time doing that at all ever. No.
It would be partly just because of who we are, but also partly because it would be tedious to listeners.
Yeah.
And we make choices differently than I think we would on a normal game, just keeping in mind what would be entertaining to listen to. So I don't know if others agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not just
what would make for the-
entertaining to listen to, but aesthetically pleasing to listen to. Like when I'm not here, I am a music and voice and choir teacher. And I think, David specifically, you'd be really, really good at this because you already are aware of what vocal fry is and when you're writing your chords and when you're tired, and that's just lousy to listen to. And you don't always realize you're doing it, and I don't even realize I'm doing it until I listen back. It's like, and even that,
My vocal cords are all
golden every single time, forever. Yep, perfect. So you should do all the podcasts, but things like vocal variety and keeping it interesting and avoiding upspeak. All these little things that nobody cares about when you're sitting around a table and you listen back later and it's like, oh, I talk like that. Okay, writing that down because they are distracting to listen to and they can take away from the story. So I try to be way more cognizant of actually performing the way I would if I had to be cognizant of speaking lines, as opposed to I'm just effing around with my character. Like what comes out of my throat matters.
And for me, it's about ensuring that we're storytelling. And so I think a lot of that is the things that we don't do, but the things that, spending an hour looking for traps and so that we don't all die. But also just ensuring that we're making the connections, maybe saying some things out loud about that I wouldn't necessarily if I was in a home game. One of my favorite things about this particular campaign that we're doing is I think a lot of times when I'm part of a D&D campaign, I'm like, what do I need to say or do to work my way through this other person's story, to hear their story that they've set up for us? And I don't somehow feel that way with this. I feel like we are writing the story, even though Matthias is mostly in charge. I feel like we're all storytelling.
Yeah.
And I love it.
I do. That's a really good point. I think that's to David's point about improv background. I don't know if that came through in the recording, but he did mention that a lot of us have some improv background at least, and some of us have quite a bit of background in improv. There's that idea of sort of gift giving to your fellow players, and I think that happens with us a lot. And I don't know that does often in a regular D&D game, where it's like you're setting up whatever the situation is, or whatever the moment is for someone else in the group because you know they're going to be able to spike it. Yeah.
That's what I was going to be my suggestion for someone who wanted to start a podcast was listen. listen and support the people that you're playing with.
So to that, would you say that many of the things that you all have changed are things that should be incorporated in home D&D games to begin with?
I think maybe it might depend on what you enjoy, because some people love the mechanics, and that's what they. I mean, yeah,
That's me.
right. So if you were gonna have a home game outside of this podcast, it would make sense for you to keep that stuff because you love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that there's no value. It's just it's different.
Yeah.
Different things.
No, yeah, I dig me a battle grid and knowing where exactly the cover is and how much AC bonus I get from certain cover. I just
min-maxing and all of it.
yeah, min-maxing's
You
great.
kept me on my toes that way more than once.
I was going to ask you something
very valuable
that just came off of this, Matthias. We don't spend a lot of time searching for traps. I don't
Yes.
think. I mean, we will get flustered by a door every so often. Have you thrown less of that at us because it's like if you give us a trap, we are then going to search for traps everywhere we go.
Right.
So do you temper some of those D&D elements that are normally in because they might not make for the most entertaining experience?
100%, yes. For the reasons that you just described, for the most part, I think that everything mechanically in D&D is to promote a certain kind of storytelling. Like, I don't think, there are games out there for like strategy and tactics, and D&D is relatively weak on a lot of those things, especially 5th edition, compared to a lot of other products that are out there. And the great part about D&D is that almost every mechanic ties to telling a story in some way, and it's always like, here's what your numbers say, now think about that, or try and connect with someone else about that. And because that's what D&D is, it's like a mechanical medium for having safe and enjoyable improv with your friends, right? For the most part, I mean, not for everyone, right, like you said, but I think for the majority of people, especially with 5th edition, like folks who play 5th edition still after a few years now, like they know what they're getting into, and that's what it is. Anyway, going back to your question,
I feel like we do get traps. We're just like, oh, that was inevitable, and now we must not look at that tapestry because we've all got sucked in by the tapestry.
I throw traps at you if they're fun and different, and I think they'll lead to interesting encounters. Not if you fail your passive perception check. Especially, like the ones you fall into. Oftentimes, I usually have like one, maybe in a live show, and it's always like something that's just gonna fuck with you guys because I want to see how you react to it, and that's the main reason. It's
And
never
we've
like
learned
you
that
take 10
Scoot will
damage.
punch himself in the
Yeah,
nuts.
it's like you get mind controlled or
We
like
went-
weirdly handicapped in some way.
We
or
went
you have
back
tell
to the
jokes.
trap, and I went right
Yeah.
into it.
It's a quote unquote trap, but really it's just like a little mini improv game for all of you to like figure out like what you're doing, and that's.
Robert, I'm curious about your thoughts on all this stuff. So you said your D&D experience was this, essentially, right? I mean, that's for playing it. But what other exposure did you have before Twin Portals? Anything? I mean,
I right before the pandemic, I had started playing a campaign with Jonathan Manchester and the Crick brothers.
okay.
We did it like 3 times, and then that was it. And I always thought it was really nerdy as a kid, and like a kind of a like, that's nerdy, I'm not gonna do that kind of thing.
But then when you played those 3 sessions,
No, I think as I got older, like and doing improv and finding out it's just really about storytelling and like being a character, that it became appealing, but I just didn't prioritize it in any way. So then you had me fill out that questionnaire thing, and then you didn't choose me to be on the team. Probably because I had 0 experience. I was like, well, now I'm going to listen to it all the time until they let me do it.
I will become an expert.
I
on
like
all things Twin
I
Portals.
like the way that's going.
And now, and then I show up and I like, what does the dice mean? And you have to explain it. I don't know how much of that you cut out, but I hope.
But then like you keep me sharp on my own DM notes too, which is like pretty incredible.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah, the story stuff you got down, man.
that part's
that
fun.
writer spirit.
But
I do love when it's like, okay, roll to see if what you know about this. And
And they
Robert's
say
like,
the number of
Robert's
sides
like,
it has on. I'm like, I don't know. They all look like they have 15. I don't know.
it's a grieved sigh that he
We should
has
get
to
a
roll
different
it
color
down.
one.
I was gonna say the exact
Yeah.
same thing. Yeah.
Except that, like, I have all these abilities as a monk. I'm like, I just want to punch people.
That is always an option. It doesn't matter what class or race you
But
are.
then you're like, roll these 3 dice 3 times. I'm like, what?
Monk is like one of the more complicated classes for like simple
You
stuff.
didn't
like a
say
monk doesn't
that.
just punch someone.
When I picked monk, you said, oh, they're really badass and they can flip around and stuff. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
And you did. Right? First episode, you flipped
warned you,
around.
but I was like, we'll work through it.
But you didn't really,
I didn't
really
fully-
warn me. I didn't.
Both of those things.
You're doing great, Robert.
Thanks. Oh no, I don't worry about it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, y'all tell me if I did good or not.
That's D&D in a nutshell.
I'm curious about those applications that we did so long ago.
I still have those.
like what they like
I
what
still
they
have them
said
here.
and why you were like, yes, this is our team.
You guys keep talking.
Well, I can speak to that.
This was a
A
conversation
little,
we had
little
at Sir
backstory
Ben's.
first before you do it. Introduce the whole thing.
Yeah, go
you,
for it.
Matthias.
Yeah, well, me and Scott got to. So first was Corey's improv show. Then Scott went to PAX and saw Acquisitions Incorporated, and then he came back all abuzz about live D&D, and we talked, and we're like, we should do this, but how do we pick a cast out, and what kind of show do we want to do? And so we met at Sir Ben's, and talked. Sorry, David's getting a beer.
He would like you to
Scott
throw
would
him
like
one
you to
also.
give him one of those drinks.
Thank you.
I didn't know that's what he meant either.
You guys,
Shut up! They can hear
you haven't watched any
stealing all
Stone
the
Cold
food.
Steve Austin in like the late 90s, because
have
that
yourself
means
food.
throw me a beer.
Extract now.
Get up here, chuck me.
How the
Thank-
WWF wrestling
Yeah,
references.
throw me a Honey Crisp balloon juice. Thank you. I'm sorry. Continue.
So then
Matthias.
they passed out all these questionnaires, and it took me 10 minutes to fill the thing out. 10 minutes in a long way.
We had a quandary because
What is 10 minutes in a long way?
I mean, like 10 minutes of the DMV. That's
so long.
10 minutes of like filling out something, then you don't get asked to do it.
I'm sorry.
It's really long.
There's no portion of Robert that holds grudges.
10 minutes is really long.
I'm
Can I
bringing
come
the
do your
conflict
3-hour
to this
podcast?
episode. You're welcome.
And thank you for the application fee also. That was really
Right?
valued.
David Greenberg,
Yeah.
Scott Hebert.
That's why I'm drinking all your beer right now.
Justin.
Just kidding.
I don't know whose second part that is.
Um,
Matt Smith.
Anyway, we had a lot of friends who played D&D and who did improv and theater stuff, and we were like, we have a huge pool of people that we could pull from. How do we narrow it down? And so we talked, and we were like, well, we don't know what everyone's like full like availability and experience is, and so we put together this questionnaire to try and get more info, and then make calls from there and figure out what kind of team we could make with the people that were interested. And we came to this group through just kind of talking through it. We didn't have like set goals from the get-go. I think we just kind of decided that like we wanted a variety of people and kind of like a new group that hadn't really played together, and it turned out great.
I have Robert's application right in front of me now.
I don't think you should shame him live on the podcast. If
It's-
there's-
Let's say
It's
an
not
F.
live.
Does it have
I
an
can edit
F
some
on
of
it?
this. It's
It's just red lines like crazy. Yeah.
briefly
Painted.
tell me about your tabletop role-playing history. How long have you played and which game systems? Roughly how many campaigns have you started? How many would you say you have finished?
I think I wrote NA or
You wrote, I've played once at Corey's last improv show.
Thank you for the
felt
honesty.
like that was an audition.
Briefly describe one of your favorite tabletop role-playing moments. This is, by the way, this very next question. I had a lot of fun playing Barney, the real dinosaur, at Corey's last show.
yeah.
Describe your level of comfort with D&D 5e rules. I'm comfortably ignorant about that. These, I did not realize at the time, were all selling points. It's fantastic.
See?
It's
You
I
see?
love it
I don't
That's how
understand why
I've
you
been-
didn't pick him.
because I wanted you.
Oh, okay.
It was
I'm
like-
not sure what my
either
answers
Robert
were
or
definitely not that entertaining.
so now you guys have to fight.
This
Have
is the
y'all
first time
have
I've
y'all
ever
seen
cast
this-
a show in my
the
life.
Short film, Cat with Human Hands.
It's a film? I thought it was just a picture.
No, you haven't seen the short
No,
film.
I haven't.
No,
You
please
shall soon.
put it
You're gonna
on
post it on
Matthias's
Discord?
wall,
Yeah. You
not
gotta post it on
mine.
Discord or I won't watch it.
Oh God, Discord.
It's just the worst.
That's where I get all my media now.
It's a terrible place.
Discord and Reddit. Anyway,
Reddit's worse.
One thing about that application too is that it had like a dinosaur theme to it on the bottom. There's like this Triceratops coin, because at that point in our planning, I thought we were going to play the Tomb of Annihilation campaign, and I had done all this prep work, and like we were going to have this awesome jungle adventure. But
you didn't pick the guy with the dinosaur experience.
Oh God, that's kind of true.
well, yeah,
He's got us on that one.
we really missed the mark, Scott.
Yeah,
Oh well.
you did have an excellent 45 minutes of dinosaur time.
I feel like this was the
Yeah.
one time where being a woman was an advantage and getting a part.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we did want to have like a somewhat diverse group and not just like a bunch of dudes, because there's so much of that in the world.
Yeah.
So that did play into it. So we kind of touched on advice for folks. Listen, do it. I would say, kind of circling back to what we were talking about. I think in the first few episodes, like we did kind of find this empathy and this sense of like listening to one another and playing like as if there was an audience, like trying to tell a story and give each other opportunities to advance the story and not just like play the game. I feel like in the first few episodes there were some times where like we kind of missed each other on the train tracks, like we didn't quite sync up, and we like talked about it afterwards. And we kind of worked a lot of stuff out in those first few episodes of just kind of like the way, like our play styles and how they didn't match. And I was going somewhere with that, and now the wine is in my head. But anyway, I guess the message is that like the fact that we were playing for an audience, I think, pushed us all to like make the effort to find ways to connect, which you don't always get in an at-home game of D&D. And I think that really was valuable. Because we kind of like realized the beauty and the strengths of our different play styles and how they interacted by like episode 3, like the first live show maybe, I think it's kind of when it really coalesced, and then from there it went on. And so for folks who want to do it, I don't know my message is to you besides like it might be a little rocky at first, but like play for an audience and listen to each other and have that empathy, and it'll just grow. Yeah. It's worth it.
I think it's fantastic because the way I play is so mechanical. It is so strategic almost the entire time. When I did play as a spellcaster in a home campaign, I almost never used my spell slots. Like, oh, I might need this for this thing that's coming up. Oh, I might blah, 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 blah. And so things that I'm going to pick on Kendra here, for example, when you spend like a level 1 spell slot to talk to an animal, I go, what are you doing? You could be healing, blah, 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 in my head. And then it always turns into something so much better than if you were healing somebody for 8 hit points later on. It's always a better story. It's a more interesting episode always, because you're making those other choices, the ones that I wouldn't even think of doing. I think it's fantastic. Still drives me, my strategic brain still goes bonkers. I'm just like, what? A second level spell? What? Oh God, we're gonna need that later. And I just bite through my tongue.
See,
to
the
not do
key
it.
is to not even know what you're talking about. Like, I know that I have second level spells. I know I can cast them at different levels. I don't know why I would ever want to do that. I've even read on it several times. I'm just like, nope, still don't. I'm just going to talk with animals. And it's going to be great.
It's always great. It's just, it makes me try to think about how I could change my play style for a different character in a different game. Things like that, just because it's just not what I do. You know, if I'm, for example, if I'm playing a home game, or a PC game like RimWorld or Stardew Valley or something like that, I'll start up a new farm on Stardew Valley. And I'm like, okay, and this time I'm going to do this. Never happens. By day 4, I'm always just farming like crazy, just crops, ignore everything else, min-max my money, this and that. Never take the time to try a different experience, just because my brain doesn't seem to be wired that way. So it's to play with people who make these choices that are so contrary to what I would normally do. It's just fantastic. It's very eye-opening.
But I think if you had 5 of you,
Oh, it'd be
it
terrible.
would not sell it. But in the same way, if you had 5 wild card showboaters, the whole thing would be falling apart. You could not have 5 Ilkas on a concertina thinking that they were God's gift to comedy for the entire show.
I would so much rather watch that than watch 5 of me.
That's kind of what a lot of like the big shows are, and I think it falls on the DM then to like be the straight person.
Rein it back in.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of those big shows play. I think like you have these like big personalities, like in Acting, all of them are crazy. But then Chris Perkins is like, well, you must now take 70 damage. This works.
Of course, it's been Jeremy Crawford for 3 years,
Well,
right?
I'm still in Chris Perkins land. I'm sorry.
I think I warned you this was how I like to play in my application, where I was like, if I want to find a weird way to use a spell, something that probably wasn't intended. I avoid combat by like using my spells to, or doing something, trying to like use the rules to break the rules almost.
Yep.
Is what I like.
Such a blessing.
Different way to do this.
So much more entertaining. I love it.
But then in a home campaign, just a one-off, I played like a character that just runs in and hits things, and I was like, I just hit that for like 50. I've never hit like all of my hits in the whole campaign. Say I haven't added up to 50. This is amazing.
Same thing for Scoot. I go in there being a barbarian. I'm the last one in combat, so Lark is already at 1/4 health by the time I get there, and he's already killed 3 things, and I just show up and I go, tank. Oh, it's immune.
Sometime
only
Scoot
happened
is gonna like hit all the die rolls, and then like your floor for like complaining and like reminding me that you haven't gotten to do your thing is gonna be gone.
No.
And then what?
It happened. It happened.
It has happened.
I destroyed some black slimes that were going to be destroyed anyways.
You hit
That
like 54.
that had no bearing on anything at all.
like immune to slashing damage.
I crit for the first time ever, I think, and just destroyed the rolls and all that damage, and it was for naught.
You're gonna have a magic axe moving forward.
I had a drink.
So that's
Yeah, but I had to pay 5,000 gold.
well.
But you had 5,000
But you
gold.
had 5,000 gold.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, that's something we haven't really like. I feel like we spent a lot of time being like, how are we going to pay for all the troll skull stuff? And then we just did it. And are we like rich now? Does troll skull make us money?
Here's the thing I was thinking about. We did all that stuff and then immediately went through a portal. Is any of that stuff going to follow us?
Well, the portal was my way of giving us a somewhat clean slate to go anywhere with season 2, and so we could, yeah. And
I want us to end up in Vincent Trench's basement. it just goes underground
Just
across the street.
Yes.
It could be at Frune's Brews.
it's all trench coats all the way down.
Just walked here.
He's on the other side. That'll be 500 gold.
Oh, I hope I don't lose my memory again.
No, he's writing
He's
that.
writing
Every
that
time
down
we go into
too.
the portal, and like I go through a portal, and it's like crap.
Reset.
But yeah, I'm not like set on like a Feywild adventure. I think there could be like a time skip. There could be, like some adventures that happen off camera, which we allude to or explore later. And then we
You said
jump to
that
something else.
the new Feywild book is maybe not quite what you were thinking as far as Arc 2 for us.
Yeah, I wouldn't use it as like a whole module. I think there are a lot of really cool encounters and NPCs in it, which I might pull from somewhat. But as far as like a campaign or like a second story, it's not quite like I don't know. It's kind of sandboxy and kind of just like, here's a bunch of Feywild stuff. So it's really, I think, made more for like telling your own story. So.
And this is a legit time. What do you in the audience now want? What's a place you'd like to see Twin Portals go? I mean, what sort of environment? What sort of location? What sort of time? I mean, shout out some things that you'd be curious, because we're genuinely interested and we probably will end up doing it.
Yeah, and whatever feedback you give, I will write it down and try to incorporate it somehow.
Yeah. Plus, there'll be a.
Back on a boat. Who's got to be on a boat?
Okay.
Yeah.
We haven't
I had
been
that
on
on
a
my
boat
list,
in
yeah.
like 20 episodes.
No, we had the underwater thing, the mechanical dervish. What's it called? The
Squall is
the-
a
I keep wanting to call her
yeah, the
the
55-gallon
device.
drum that turns
Well, we
into
made
a-
apparatus of
Qualifier.
quality.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Nice.
What else?
Scoot's gotta
I'd
get
like
on.
to see a battle to the death with Evil Dimension Swoj.
Good.
Dark Souls.
Evil
Bizarro.
Swoj.
Evil Lark actually has a mustache.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Or no mustache, and yours is now who's the real evil one? Oh, classic Scooby Doo shit. Oh, I'm all
We're
about
in the
it.
Underlined
AU.
5 times.
Oh my
Ilka's
god!
alive.
I have to get 5 more microphones, and we get 5 people to play Evil Us.
Critical Role does that like battle royale episode every so often, where they just like at the end of a campaign, they're like, okay, now all of you freaking fight, and let's just see who wins. And I think that's really fun. We could do more stuff like that, where it's just like, let's just take a side and have some fun.
Mr. E would die really quickly.
I don't know that he would.
That's
All
not-
your dragon breath.
He's got dragon buddies, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know how to roll the dice. It's not Mr. E, it's me. It's the operator.
Okay.
So are you saying that evil Mr. E would actually like know how to beat
Oh wait.
Or is it good, Mr.
Yeah, he
Mr.
could
E?
still not know, but just
I still don't. I'm unclear.
Yeah, he would actually follow the rules.
He
so.
steals a lot, so he's probably
Oh, he's a real giver.
Like how
Give me all his
opposite
money. Let's do it.
is this? Like a swapped alignment, swapped morality? What? How do we find the mirror
Yeah.
of these characters?
Character motivation.
It could be like Dark Universe version though, where like Community style, where you all have like scars and robotic arms and trauma. And,
You're
like,
already a
through all
robot.
of it. Yeah.
We'll get
That's
a
why
real
I'm thinking,
Larkin
like
in here.
Ilka would basically be some kind of a really healthy, robust paladin.
Sure.
To get that opposite.
And like 100 years old or
Because
whatever,
she like
because she never died.
her lowest stat is strength because she's literally deteriorating. She doesn't have muscle structure.
So you are the Dark Universe? Okay.
Yes.
I think my opposite might be Zardos. He's good at everything. Like he's good on boat stuff. He can get out of the water.
His
he can
stat
jump.
block is in the book. You want to look at it and try to fight that?
No,
Go for it.
not at all. I'm not saying this is tactically a good idea. I'm saying it's thematically interesting.
So our
And also I'm gonna look
campaign
at
I think he's CR 17.
allowed for different bad guys. Is that correct? Was Zardos a potential final?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the book as written is awesome. I love the Dragon Heist source book. If anybody wants to do an urban adventure, it's broken up into 4 different paths. It's like a really short story, but it has 4 different branches. And so the book encourages you to pick a season, and each season is tied to a certain villain. There are 4 main villains, which we've encountered. There's a Necromancer, there is the Xanathar, the Castlanters, and Jarlaxle. And they all have their own like quirky, heisty stuff to do, and allies and enemies and things. And the best way to play it is to kind of, well, in my opinion, the best way to play it is to just take all that and do your own thing with it, because on their own, the individual adventures are kind of like weak, and the motivations aren't always there, and so it's hard to like make a really clear adventure. But just like comprehensively, then all the NPCs and encounters and locations across the 4 seasons and paths are incredible. So it was a really good source of inspiration. I'm glad we used it. I'm glad we picked it instead of the Tomb of Annihilation.
You son of a bitch. There's a pronunciation guide at the front of this. Oh, yeah. We could have used this.
Is everything under Z? Aether wide, no entries.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord. I can't even spell Zardos. All right. And that's why I'm putting it back
I
on.
do want to point out.
phonetic.
So Dana made a suggestion that we return to that Scoot needs to get back on a ship, and I do want to remind you that when the last time we went to a ship, Scoot fell off the rope twice. If I remember right, just trying to like get in and out.
That's why. And didn't Zardos have to help me up?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we can get onto the ship through the bag of holding, right?
That's right.
If it's open on the other
Can
side.
we just like reach an arm in and knock on the other portal?
That's a
Twin
legit
portal?
question.
Yeah, we haven't explored that.
So one thing I'm curious to see, and that may be fun, is like just a series of one-shots with your characters.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be a really great way for new players to, get invested in, you guys as a group.
Yeah, Sam is suggesting a series of one-shots to like character introduction things, and that's a thing we've actually talked about in the past, especially during the pandemic. We were thinking like, how
Is
do
that
we-
on Discord?
How do we
'Cause-
even do this? Yeah, we talked about it on Discord. Robert, we said we'll let the decision be Robert's. What do you think, Robert? And then you never got back to us.
Just kept hearing.
I want to sort of piggyback on Sam's idea. So here's my question: if somebody has never listened to Twin Portals and they're going to start now, can they start at the top of Arc 2? And is there anything that we need to do, like one shots for character backgrounds, or we do the beginning of each episode summary? Do we need to do a Arc 1 summary, or here's what you need to know before you start? Like, is there a new entry point for new listeners?
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. I have Matthias write the intro, and then I've been doing the recording of it because it's harder for him to get quiet time at his house. So it's just easier for me to. He just can bang out the words, and then I prefer when you do the voiceover because I like your voiceover better for the beginning than mine.
I'll do it.
All right.
From now on. Let's
Yeah,
make
if you can
sure.
get it to me in under a week and a half, then I'll use it.
Okay.
But like me, when you're given a deadline, however long you give a person to do a job is how long it takes.
Underlined it 3 times.
No, you didn't. You liar.
Anyway,
Try to sell me on that.
I think that's a great idea, and I think we should totally do that. I think we at least have to have a recap. If we're just like progressing the story, like uncut for the second part of Twin Portals, we got to do some kind of a recap, and maybe maybe the first couple episodes should be like something that is more like tight and localized and not like referencing the last 30 episodes to try and make it a good
Please.
starting point for new characters or new listeners, because that makes sense. That's a good thing to do in the start of a new arc.
What I hope at least is that even if you are new or you're jumping in episode to episode, there's enough recap at the beginning where you kind of know what the most recent events are. And then we are so forgetful about the past events that we need it recapped while we are recording, which isn't, I'm not calling that a dig. I think it's actually useful because these episodes are a month apart. It's a long time. And if you're not going to listen, Justin listens the day or two before and gets the recap there. I listen to it for hours and hours right after we do it. So I'm not really interested in listening to it right again. So I myself am just like, who, why did I like that person? I can't remember. The only person I know I didn't like is Zardos. That's about it. You'd have to tell me if you think it works or not as a listener.
It helps a little bit, but there's still, gaps that you kind of notice that are there.
Yeah.
You always kind of wonder, what else has happened. I don't know. I just think that also, I think that from a fan, inviting somebody in kind of perspective, having a recent starting point that you can be like, okay, you don't have to listen to the entire 30 episodes. You can just start at this point and, get right going. That would be very helpful for bringing in new people, because then you don't mandate an archive binge for people.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because for me coming in, listening to 30 episodes sounds like a really big commitment,
Yeah.
even if it may not be.
So my live D&D experience,
2 hours.
Yes.
my live D&D experience started with Acquisitions Incorporated, and I didn't start listening until about 2015, 2016. I just watched the season as it was getting posted on YouTube. So I didn't know the character backgrounds, anything like that. And I still fell hard in love with it. And because I was interested in those characters and that stuff, then I went back and listened to the rest of it. So my plan always was to have some kind of soft recap or an easy entry back into it, including a reintroduction of the players
At the top of Arc 2.
at the top of Arc 2, whatever that's going to be. It's just going to be kind of like it was 3 years ago with us sitting around a table talking about our characters, what they are, where they're going, what they want, stuff like that. And then bang, we're back into the situation wherever they get set up and whatever Matthias deems is best for us to get back into our new adventure. I don't know if the next arc will be 30 episodes. I don't think it'll take 3 years unless there's another pandemic that shuts everything down for...
Don't say stuff like that.
I didn't make...
How do we feel causing the pandemic?
That was not my best work, but it's long lasting and people remember.
I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's weird that in order to finish an entire campaign, you have time to have an entire pandemic.
Right.
I've been in campaigns where it's ran for 2 pandemics and we still just kind of fizzled out.
David,
Good leadership.
Lark died, man.
Are you talking about anybody in particular up on this panel right now to my left?
So Zay got you guys some Christmas presents. I mean, some solstice presents.
Oh boy. Thank you for taking us to a different direction, by the way. Sincerely. Holy shit.
Lark, Zay got you a sheath for your Rowan Crook's dagger.
Yes.
I was debating between that and just like in in Breath of the Wild, how you can get mantle pieces to go on your wall and you can just leave your weapons on them. I almost got you that for your room, but I went with the sheath instead.
What does the sheath look like?
It is leather and it inscribed, it says "For Justice."
Oh yes.
Thank you. Scoot,
Yes.
Zay got you a box of assorted teas from all over Waterdeep. Ilka, you have a spelled bowl that creates humidity to keep your concertina working well. And Mr. E, so Zay's been very confused about the lock that you wear around your waist this whole time, and she's very concerned that you don't have keys for it. So she's been collecting them from all over Waterdeep, and she presents you with like 40 or 50 keys of various sizes.
Like on a ring?
In
Like
the
a
hopes
key
that,
ring?
yeah, that one might.
That's gonna be a new bracelet for me to hit people with.
Might work.
And then Mystery, out of character, gives you a big long hug, and then says, "Here, I got you these," and it's a handful of shiny rocks. And I give them to you, and you probably recognize that I stole them out of your pocket during the
These are
hug.
just like some from my collection. They're
And I said, I
perfect.
knew you would like these.
I do. I love them. Thank you.
But Zay's packs are so
Thank
deep
you.
that like she doesn't necessarily have a log of them, so like they look like new rocks
Oh
to
yeah,
her.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't take them all. I took a full handful, and there's plenty in there.
Was there a moment where Mr. E picked one of the pouches for Zay and you found out that you got shiny pebbles?
No, it was during the hug.
During the hug.
Yeah, I reached in and got some.
Fantastic.
But I was very touched by the key ring, and it's a new weapon on my wrist.
Kind of a dick.
Also, there's now 40 to 50 Waterdeep citizens who can't get into their cars and their houses.
The locksmith's guild is making a lot of money
Yeah,
this season.
it's a scam.
Yeah.
I got a question about the next season here. Are there going to be more dragons, and are they all going to be as reasonable as the ones that have come up so far?
I was just given a diplomatic job,
That's true.
right? I'm like in charge of
Choosing
dragons.
which dragons get to be
No.
part of our city.
Oranax just likes Mr. E a lot. That's the extent of your political power, really. But then from that, a lot of other power, as long as that relationship holds
Seems
on.
irresponsible.
So the
it up
question
with
is
Warnex.
if there
Do
will
I
be
have to
more
roll dice
more-
for that
if
stuff?
there will-
Maybe. Depends what
the
you
question
do.
is if there will be more dragons in Arc 2 and if they will be as reasonable as the ones we've met so far.
Yeah, the answer is yes and no.
Did you pick up Fizzbang's Guide to Dragons? I think that's
Yes,
one.
yes.
That's 264 pages of dragon shit. It's awesome. There's just all dragon blocks, how to make a dragon's lair, what kind. What's that?
Probably.
Dragon dung? I'm sure it's
Dragon
parts.
piss.
I didn't look that deep into it.
Matt Colville has a book called Strongholds and Followers. It has a whole section on like dismantling monsters and using their parts for alchemy and cool stat buffs.
Oh,
So if not Fizzbang's book, then that book has all kinds of dragon guano.
what's another high level enemy or NPC of a type that you've been interested in injecting? What about vampires or
We could start the
mummies?
first episode of Arc 2 with a Tarrasque.
Oh god,
Tarrasques are great.
No, they're
I like
not.
Tarrasques. Tarrasques are wonderful.
Very first campaign
that'll
I played with this guy, he dropped a Tarrasque on us in like minute 4
on Waterdeep, in fact.
on
the
Waterdeep.
entire-
That's
yeah,
right.
4 minutes in, Waterdeep is destroyed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're
That's how
just
we start.
sprinting away from this Tarrasque at 30 feet around.
That was a learning opportunity for me because
I've got some feelings.
because we didn't have a session 0 for that whole campaign, and so I was like, guys, it's gonna be fun, trust me. And then like I put them through like a Fallout style like post-apocalyptic experience where like a Tarrasque destroyed the world, and also this eldritch murk seeped up from the ground and wiped away everything, and they were all frozen in time until 2,000 years in the future when they woke up inside the Tarrasque's mouth. It had turned to crystal. They crawled out, and it was like Breath of the Wild or Fallout, and they were like in this floating sky world. And anyway, there's a lot of lore to it, but none of them were fucking prepared for that, and they had like no character like justification for doing anything in this world aside from getting home. And so like all the hooks that I threw at them were like, whatever, I don't care about this or that kingdom or this NPC. How do I get home?
That's our DM,
And
guys.
I did not. This was pre-Twin Portals, and Twin Portals taught me that I should listen to my players better.
Everyone had these carefully crafted backstories that no longer mattered.
I tried really hard to loop in everybody's backstory in some way, at least. I did a better job with some than others. Scott, I'm sorry.
in classic first campaign fashion for me, and this is at a time where I was working an as-needed X-ray job, so I'm taking X-rays as they come in at the clinic. So some days I'm working for 20 minutes. I'm there for 8 hours, but I'm only actually working for. I spent so much time on this fucking backstory. Right, just history. I probably still have it in here somewhere with hearts and stars on it for all my hopes and dreams. gone. Doesn't matter. I'm like, what the? Is this Dungeons and Dragons? Is
So
this
for
how
our
this
for our
goes?
listeners who can't see what's going on, Scott has refused to make eye contact with Matthias for the last 4 minutes of talking.
That's my nonverbal communication.
And then there's Zay backstory, which is I fell out of a portal and can't remember anything.
Yeah,
So,
that's an awesome backstory.
so I learned from that campaign. That was a learning experience for me. So when I had to have backstory for Scoot, mom's name, dad's name, ship name, here's a character, go.
The main takeaway from that campaign was that Tarasques are awesome. Anyway,
And you should drop them every chance you get.
actually, the future world, the Tarasque was like this floating magical object that kept the city afloat. And so instead of Waterdeep, it was called Terra Deep because it was a Tarasque.
I
pretty
never
cool,
got
right?
that.
It was
I
a
never got
really
it.
awesome campaign.
I was gonna say it sounds kind
It
of.
was
amazing
actually
so far.
phenomenal, and I got to play a gunslinger. Which was
Yeah.
pretty
That was pretty cool.
The class itself, so.
You play the same
But you
character
played
now, but
great.
you don't have any guns.
great. Yeah, pretty much.
Your
No, he
hand
was-
fell off, remember? You had a
Yeah.
hand that got left back in time.
Yeah,
This
my
is
hand got cut
great
off.
listening
Yeah.
for everybody else.
Anyway,
We reminisce. Sorry, everyone.
Anybody else want to hear about old campaigns that you've never heard anything about?
going back to the question, other monsters that would be fun to fight. I
Yeah.
always thought slods.
I didn't
were
say
really
fight.
Cool.
I just mean introduce as NPCs.
Interact with. I always thought slods were really cool because they're sort of like H.R. Geiger's alien monster, but also these kind of plane hopping intelligent frog things, which is just weird and very
Like the
D&D-ish.
Hypnotoad?
They're kind of hypnotoady,
Okay.
yeah, but they also spawn little tadpoles that worm into you and then burst out into full-grown slods.
Very alien.
Okay.
They're very alieny, and I don't know, something about that. The fact that they're not just these uncommunicative predators, but also kind of intelligent.
Okay, can you find a way to time that with when I IRL, not Ilka, give birth? That's that episode when
writing it
Ilka is
down.
gone because I'm off
You
making a
underlined
baby.
that 4 times.
Oh,
Right.
man.
Slods.
I don't know if I want to
Yes.
make this more
plus
real.
Ilka.
We already had Lark start a
Yes.
pandemic.
You got 3 months.
Okay.
Plan that.
Well, we're plane hopping now in the campaign,
Yeah.
so I mean,
Hey.
and honestly, kind of getting to what Sam was saying, I think the first few episodes at least should for sure not be in Waterdeep and be a tighter arc involving NPCs and locations that we have not explored yet, just so that it's a good intro point, like you were saying.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something with a slot in it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, just do a whole body horror episode.
Ugh, I do really enjoy body horror in a weird, twisted way. No.
Anybody else got questions?
As you reviewing the last 30 episodes and thinking of your favorite character moment that's not your own character, can you think of one that stuck out?
I loved the llama sound very early on. Zay's Kendra says, Zay makes the sound of a llama. And I think all of us are like, what? Oh, really? What does that sound like?
And then phones started coming out.
It wasn't that
think-
far off.
We started doing research.
Well, it started with research, and you guys probably were like, "What the hell is she doing? Why is she on her phone?" And I just Googled sounds horses are afraid of, and a llama was one of the first things that came up.
Mine is also a Zay reference, and I can boil it down to one line. And I can't remember if it was a live show or not, but the line goes, "Hey guys, I cast Pass Without Trace!"
Oh, yeah, I
Because
failed
everyone
that.
else rocked a stealth check and you got a 1. And just that that screamy delivery. I loved it. It was I laughed so hard. I laughed when I re-listened to it. It just cracked me up to no end.
And I remember where you suddenly could swim underwater for long distances and didn't tell anybody.
He drowned.
Yeah, and everybody was freaking out, and then
right.
and you found that underwater apparatus, and you all realized you had not returned it. That whole sequence in there, and I don't remember what you were doing, and it had nothing to do with what you ended up doing. And
Yeah,
I think you were on the way to the
that's
rat
that's gonna be the
people.
new synopsis for the show.
Yeah, it was. That was a fun episode. That one sticks out to me.
there's a lot of times where we'll throw out a prompt and Matthias will improvise the scene based on it. And I think I laugh about some of those things still. Like when we were looking for a body for Terry, and everyone was feeling so conflicted about killing the cat, and we're like,
Oh my God!
do any of the
That's what I was
cats
just
look like
thinking
they're
of.
kind of meaner than the others? And
These cats are
turned
real
into this
dick.
whole, like he's got tattoos and a
It's like
switchblade.
American
It's
History
like a
X.
West Side Story cat.
Yeah. He had made somebody curb stomped somebody.
As we
It's like an
Just like
awful guy.
the amount of effort you guys put into like helping Terry and like finding bodies for him and food for him and like involving him in things.
I felt super bad about the
That is what
dog.
was close to my heart, especially like the dog and the
Yeah.
guard and the horse and the cat. Like wow, yeah, went places I did not expect.
It's like we've had a lot of misplaced care. It seems like because like
Misplaced?
it's like the rest of this stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I totally suplexed this Zuber driver off of the top of his carriage. Sure, why not? Whatever solves my current problem.
It's telling a story, right?
There's two parts to mine. I enjoy that Beth always has a version of a song whenever.
so
My favorite is like Matthias is always like, "Oh yeah, how do you do that?" Like, or like, "What song is it?" Or "What does that sound like?" And you do it a lot to us. We're like, "We're gonna just vaguely do this sing," and he's like, "How does that work?" And we're like, "Okay." We'll come up with something. But Beth always does. She's just like, okay, and then spits something out, and I'm like, that's so clever.
Truly an
Yeah,
encyclopedic
picture of it,
knowledge
yeah.
of songs and can pick one out. Either the title of the song, the lyrics of the song, or the tone of the song always fit whatever it is. It's fucking awesome.
And the best part
What
is
a
she's
blessing.
never like upset that he's like, tell me about it. She's like, oh, okay. And she like leans in and she's got some ideas.
It's like,
Having,
yes,
an actual bard play the bard in
Yeah,
your
right?
campaign is pretty awesome.
yes, teacher, do you have more homework I can do? And for the listeners, she is beaming right now.
This is one of those things that to almost everyone around me, this is an obnoxious thing I've done my whole life. So here it's like, oh, you love this shit. Let me hand you more of it.
Robert, I'm curious about what you want more out of from Twin Portals.
I have no context. I'm like, yeah, let's go. to
Yes.
the-
What time? Just
Yeah, I don't know anything about. I thought everything happened in Watershed or whatever. I thought that's what. And you're like, oh, there's a portal to the Feywild. I'm like, what? Okay, all right.
Matthias is just
Anything can happen.
yeah, he's just
Oh.
unlocking your imagination in real time.
No, I'm just like I'm just here to help tell a story and react. So if it's absurd, that sounds fun. I'll just try to do absurd things, and then you'll tell me when to roll the time. I'm happy to be included, and it's a lot of fun.
That's a DM's dream right there.
Yeah.
If it's absurd,
I
I'll
think
just keep
I'm
the absurd and you tell me when to roll a die.
I'm just here to tell jokes and make funny observations.
Yep.
I think. I don't know.
I think Mr. E has kind of found himself as a character.
Yeah, no, that first episode, I was like, oh, I just get to come in and steal this book, and I don't even know why I need it. And you're like, you decide, and I'm like, okay. And then I made up Mr. Ziyagi
And
as a
Dragon
joke
Piss.
to tell at some point. I didn't get to. Dragon Piss came later, yeah. It's like, oh yeah, he's addicted to psychedelic drugs.
And he cooks them himself
Right.
in our tavern.
And dragons are really into it.
Yeah, dragons are into it. Got me a job. So I hope I don't get tied down with the bureaucracy of this city job, because that doesn't sound fun. But if I do, then the city's gonna go to shit. Probably let in a bunch of dragons that shouldn't be there.
I was thinking that's probably gonna be
I wanna
something
see
that
that,
comes out
too.
pretty quick in the
Okay.
show. It's like, like how? Because it's not really a good fit for E necessarily. So like,
No, which could be hilarious, right? I mean, he could be like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like,
Right.
now the dragons are back.
right.
Hey, Justin, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I was just kind of curious if everybody, I'm sort of curious if the characters that everybody's playing are where you thought they would be? Like,
Yes.
is Swoj where you thought it would be at this point?
Great question, Justin.
That's a good question, Justin.
I'll start with Mr. E because no, I thought I was gonna get killed in that first episode.
Oh, that would have been awesome.
Based on prior.
Wow, just I
guests.
have no
Yeah,
idea
right?
what to expect.
Well,
but
then-
then I got to steal the book, and I was like, oh no, they have to let me come back.
We didn't know what the book was.
I didn't either.
Just that you needed it.
Yeah, I vaguely needed it to go find Mr. Ziyagi.
That's what we call a MacGuffin.
I'm a guffed.
Yeah.
For Ilka, I thought immediately we were going to be digging into this like grisly grandfather from the hell, heaven, otherworldly stuff, death, sacrifice. What-
I'm just looking at your mask.
Oh.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. It's got Wonder Woman. I can wear her thighs on my face.
That sounds nice.
Can I have a mask?
Yeah, I thought immediately this was going to be. I mean, Ilka's a zombie. She's a purple-haired undead grisly horror, and instead it was she's this local celebrity barding it up, and we leaned real hard into that. So it's been a lot more cheery and upbeat than I think my first expectation for what I'd be doing with the character was.
Yeah. It definitely like pivoted both ways, kind of like hard at different points, which I thought was cool. Like, yeah, there was not Ilka was not a one-note character right from the start, which makes sense because she's bard.
Yeah, I wrote a little bit for my own purposes of like to help me in motivation and alignment that she doesn't really function a whole lot like a human anymore, and some of her morals and ethics have shifted. So things that seem strange or horrific are just like, yep, that's a task that needs to be accomplished. Get it done, and that worked well.
I'm just a fairly dull sort of character generator. I don't usually come up with a lot of big interesting hooks or twists. Like I'd seen on Twitter, on the kind of the D&D Twitters, what a DM asks for from characters, and it's like, no, I don't need your 30 pages of backstory. You give me a few details, you give me some hopes and dreams, you give me some fears, things like that, and the DM will build off of that. So I kind of came in bare bones. I don't know if subconsciously I was protecting myself because I knew I would also be having to focus on the sound quality during the recording. The more heavily involved I am in a particular scene and particular episode, it kind of takes away from this other thing that I'm focusing on while I'm producing simultaneously. So it ended up becoming kind of dull. And I also think, in a way, kind of interesting that the half-orc barbarian is just sort of the 9-to-5 sort of dude. Just show up, do the job, go home. That's sort of thing. It's just very, it was out of character in a nice way, I thought, which ended up working well. And just maybe, I don't know if I ever intended it that way or if that's just how it became after 30 episodes of simultaneously playing and recording. So, but I'm pleased with the way it is. I think it's kind of humorous that the barbarian has so little going on.
For me, I think I had set out to play a character who was enthusiastic and sort of excited about things. In the past, when I've played characters that aren't that way, just because that's kind of my personal personality, it sort of spills through. I'm like, what if I just embraced that and played somebody like that? And so I had designed Lark to be this really nerdy guy who was excited about stuff. And my initial plan was that it would be more sort of thief build. He would be sort of a nighttime, like he'd have this secret personality, the Silver Ferret, which became sort of part of the story too, and he would go out at night and steal from the rich and give to the poor, inspired by Rowan Crooks. As we played, though, it became clear that he was more of a swashbuckler, and so that build switched for him around, I guess, 3, which is
something like that.
whenever the level 3,
Level
not
3,
episode
yeah.
3. So yeah, kind of what I expected, but also slightly different. It's been fun though.
You switched it around the Gralhund Villa episode, I think. So that was like 9, I think, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It was at the point where I had to make a choice about this sort of class differentiation, and I was like, actually, he's a little more swashbuckler, so went that route. Yeah, I've loved it. Like, I was so sad when Lark died. I was like, oh shit, I'm never gonna play another character as much as I love this one. So,
with Zay, I partly wanted to do like the mysterious background memory loss thing because I knew this was being recorded, and I knew that some listeners would have like a really in-depth knowledge of the like D&D lore that I do not have. So I guess one thing would have been, to make her just from a distant land or something. But I felt like if she had amnesia of some sort, she could have all the questions in the world about how things worked, and sort of serve as the audience in that way of like, oh, what's that part of town? What does that mean? You live here? Like, what's the reputation of that part of town? Because I didn't have that knowledge when I could have, because there is the source book. But so I kind of went with that path with Zay, to sort of reflect my own lack of knowledge about parts of the world. I think I thought maybe I would find out. I think there were times where I found out some bits about Zay's past, and so I'm looking forward to figuring out more of that. And what the heck is, like, will we do a whole arc on the contract I just signed? Ooh. Yeah, anyway, we'll see.
That's good job security right there.
That does sound fun, doesn't it?
Yes.
Matthias, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm here to enjoy every minute of it, and I think that whatever ends up happening is going to be awesome. And I would love to explore all of y'all's backstory to an even greater level of detail than we have so far. And also, you just signed a contract with Asmodeus, and that's pretty freaking wild. So if we just left it at that would be pretty sad. So,
Did it play out the way you were expecting?
I had no idea what to expect, and so I'm happy with how it turned out. Yeah, I was ready for any kind of shenanigans. So,
any last words from the audience? A lot of head shaking. Class is over. Thanks you for hanging out.
Thanks for being here. Woo!
Twin Portals is produced and edited by Scott Hebert. The adventure is created by our Dungeon Master Matthias Valero, and the rest of the Silver Waves of Justice are played by Kendra Carlson, Beth Brophy, and Justin Peck, with guest adventurer Robert Lee. It's been 1 week since Swellage got together, and I've updated medical info on Scoot. His foot was not broken the day before recording, merely sprained badly. The fractures reported by Waterdeep medical professionals were old breaks which healed naturally on their own. Scoot will be back to full movement speed in 2 to 3 fortnight. Scott Hebert is a fiscal year 2021 recipient of a Creative Support for Individuals grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board. This activity is made possible by the voters of Minnesota through a grant from the Minnesota State Arts Board thanks to a legislative appropriation from the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Previous support was made possible by the Arrowhead Regional Arts Council, and my sincerest thanks to those two boards for their support. Thank you to Leeland Campana for use of his song Avernum as our theme song. Thank you to the Renegade Theater Company, Teatro Zaccone, and Mary Fox for their support. And once again, thank you all so much for listening to Twin Portals. Have a safe and happy holiday season. We will see you next year.
Scott, do we sound okay? Are we like recording?
Never.
Sound terrible?
Do we,
No. Yeah.
we sound troubled.
This is always garbage.
How's this? Is this okay?
That's the kind of confidence I'm here for.
Basically, I get tired of editing or tired of tweaking stuff, and I just go, I'll fucking fix it in post. And then I realize I'm not smart enough to fix anything in post, and I go, fuck it, I'll drink until I like it.